Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Rhonda. It's Monday all day long. I'm glad you're here. So we are going to jump right in to what we're doing today. Hi, Julie. Or Julie. I know there's a Julie out there somewhere. I don't think that's you. I think you're Julie. Anyway, pay no attention to the girl in the box today. It's good to see you all. Anyway, so yes, we are going to jump into what we're doing today and just get started. We will talk at the end. We will talk at the end of the show, okay? All right. So this is what we were doing on Friday. We actually last Monday we created this fabric from scraps because life had been a little crazy. It has not gotten a whole lot better. We'll talk about that after a while. But I did these scraps, turn scraps into fabric, a piece of fabric that I could work with. So little bitty scraps, chucked them together on a piece of stabilizer, stitched on them. Then on Friday I stitched on them some more, and then from there I took some canvases I had done back in 2012. These are made from, these were intended to be stamps that didn't work out, and so I just used the thing I did for the stamps. And they're made on those styrofoam fruit and vegetable trays that you buy, that you get fruit and vegetables on. Yeah, I understood. Hi, Terry. I understand, Rhonda. I understand. Jinx is Rhonda, if you don't know. She's one of my great mods. So anyway, that's where these came from. So I took these images. This one became this guy. So I drew off the dog on just a piece of tracing paper. So that's where I got my pattern. So this is something I created when I was doing I drew a whole bunch of dogs from a class that I did, doing them with my non-dominant hand. That's where these all came from. So I did a whole bunch of those and a whole bunch of cats. So these are two of the cats here that I did, that I thought, oh, I'll just turn those into stamps, you know, like printing plate stamps, but the printing plate didn't work. But what I got in the end, I was happy with, so I just turned them into little canvases. So this cat came from this one, okay? And I just cut off the whiskers. And, you know, it's not exactly the same as what the cat is here, but it's close enough. Close enough. You like the fabric dog? Yeah, I like the fabric dog too. He's pretty cute. So I said on Friday that I was going to give both of these away tonight. We're going to wait and we're going to do that next Monday. Okay? You'll understand why after a while. But that's what we're going to do. So we're going to finish up this kitty. You know, the one thing that I know for sure is that sometimes the things take over and stuff just has to get changed. And that happened. That happened today. Okay, so this dog, just to explain to you how it happened, he got cut out of the fabric. Okay, this exact fabric piece right here. Okay, he came from right in there is where he came from, out of this piece of fabric, because I turned him on the diagonal so I could get the spiral belly button there, and so it wouldn't be just straight across his, exactly straight across his face. It's kind of, roundy. Anyway, that's where that one came from. I put him on a piece of black felt. I think it's a boy, but who knows really. I put him on a piece of black wool felt, so that's what's on here. I know it's hard to see. Black thread, black wool felt, hard to see. I like the black because it gives the impression of an outline. And I did a tiny zigzag stitch around to attach the figure to the black felt. I did a tinier zigzag stitch to create the definition, so just kind of separate the ears from the head to make the muzzle. I put another piece of wool felt that I just cut out, simulated this shape of this nose, and stitched that on. More tiny zigzags down here to make the tummy there. And what else? And then the eyes, I used cream colored ultra suede because I didn't have any felt that worked. So this is cream colored ultra suede. I have a huge stash of ultra suede from back when I was working in the sewing machine sales and fabric sales. So I have everybody used to give me their scraps, and so I kept a number of the scraps. I have lots of different colors, different little pieces and stuff. I like ultra suede because it, first of all, it's textured. Can you see it's kind of textured? See it has kind of this texture surface to it. So in that respect, it's a little bit like felt. And I know on black it's impossible to see. You might be able to see it on this one a little bit more. It has a felt-like texture. It doesn't ravel, just like felt doesn't ravel. This is a poured fabric. Okay, this is a synthetic material that is poured out to create the ultra suede. I don't understand. I've never seen it done. I don't know all the ins and outs of how they do it, but anyway, it's ultra suede and it's a great fabric. It's expensive as all get out, but if you get scraps, it's great. Okay, so that's where the eyes came from, and then the black part of the eyes came from little tiny pieces of felt. The whites of the eyes came from this Tulip Slick Rider dimensional fabric paint. I keep these big ones in black and white because the tiny nozzle is really great for writing stuff. I said the other day when I was showing this, I don't know whether these are still available. Sometimes they change products or relabel stuff. I don't know what's available now and what's not. Hi, Dana. Hi, Skinny Cat. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. Yeah, and you know, another thing you can do when you go to thrift stores or secondhand stores, look in the clothing, because a lot of times you can find synthetic suede things. Vests, I used to find vests, jackets, skirts, and you get a lot of fabric out of a synthetic vest, a synthetic leather vest, ultra suede. It's labeled different names, but you can. That's a great way to go and find things. Or gloves. Gloves are another place to get good leather. A lot of them are actual leather, or sometimes the old gloves. And if I could put my hand on them right now, I'd show them to you because I have quite a collection of old gloves, believe it or not. I know, shocking. The ones that feel almost like felt. I don't know what they're made of, but they're the ones that the ladies used to wear to church. You know, they had the stitching on the back of the hand. They would have like 3 lines, like pin tucks on the back of the hand, but they had a unique feel. They weren't leather. They were some other material. Those are really good too. So yeah, so all of those are good. Those kinds of things are good. So don't pass that stuff up as possible sources for your materials. And all of this in here, that is all scraps. You guys saw me put this together, and it is just a whole bunch of little bitty odds and ends of scraps of fabrics. And I used one sheet of 9x12 stabilizer. It happened to be Ricky Tim's stabilizer. You can use any kind of stabilizer that you would use for doing embroidery, machine embroidery, or a tearaway type stabilizer is what I like to work on. This one from Ricky Tim's I tend to like really well because it not only tears away, if the embroidery is dense, it will tear away. Something like this, it's not going to tear away because there's way too much stitching on. But if you were to wash this in a quilt project, for example, it was designed to dissolve and leave behind just very fine fibers. I never wash it, I never dissolve it, but it doesn't, from what I understand, it doesn't affect the hand of the fabric the way that the fabric feels. I never wash this stuff. This is art, art projects, so they're not meant to be washed. If they get dirty, if the cat throws up on it, if something happens to it, I'll make a new one. That's how I feel about that. Okay, and we all know that when I had two Siamese cats called the Sponsors, they were notorious. Especially Charlie was notorious for leaving his mark on something that was always, it was always on the thing that was really important. It was always on the thing that was important. He would, throw up on it. I had this beautiful piece of jelly plate printed fabric that I needed for a specific thing, and you guessed it, he did. It was printed with acrylic paint that's never supposed to wash out. It did. It just, if the stars could have aligned any better, yeah, they would have. Okay. Oh, I have the cutest thing to show you. It's still on my desk. I showed it to the VIP group the other day. Look at this tiny, teensy tiny little pineapple. The neighbors next door, which is not exactly next door here, but the closest neighbors to us grew this baby pineapple. This pineapple is so little. Can you see how tiny? It's so tiny it fits in the palm of my hand. But it's so great. I love the design of the top of the pineapple. I love the design of the bottom of the pineapple. I mean, if that isn't a Zentangle design, I don't know what is. Anyway, they planted or somehow propagated the top of a pineapple. They said they do this all the time, but they don't all work. This one did, that this came from. And they had a crop of babies. And so this was the last of the babies. I don't know how many babies a pineapple has because I've never, I know nothing about it. But they said it took like 3 years to grow pineapples from that. And I'm like, whoa, this is a valuable piece of gold right here. Anyway, we've got to eat it before it spoils. They said it was ready to eat. Isn't that funny? Okay. All right. I don't see anything else in the chat, so we're going to move forward. I think that takes you through all of the steps for the puppy. I was intending to put a string or something on the puppy. I don't know what I'm going to do with him. He could be a bookmark. He could be an ornament to hang on a Christmas tree if you just add a string or a nylon fishing line loop. All kinds of stuff. He could be further embellished with a collar or a necktie or whatever. Okay? So that's how this puppy came into being, and this puppy all of this came into being because I just needed to do something and I didn't know what I was going to do, and we made it up as we went along. We did. Okay, so the kitty. Here is the kitty, and this is how the kitty went together, like this. So this is the cat. And so this kitty has these goofy big eyes. and so that's why this shape is like this. So we're gonna first of all put the kitty's eyes together and the nose, and then we'll go from there. So what I did, hi Catherine, a pineapple plant only bears one pineapple. Wow. that makes that makes this pineapple even more valuable. Doesn't it? It surely does. Okay, so what we have here is a piece of the ultra suede that I told you just a minute ago. I was explaining that to you. And I wanted it to be sturdier than a single layer. Here is the ultra suede. As you can tell, I just had it wadded up in a container. Don't ever iron ultra suede with your iron right on the fabric. You've got to put at least one, better 2 layers of press cloth on it and iron it, which I did. But if you touch the surface of your iron straight onto this, it actually could come off and stick to the bottom of your iron, which is not good because this is synthetic material. So I took a piece of fusible web. In this case, it was Wonder Under, and that is a paper-backed fusible web. And so I ironed, excuse me, a little square of it on the back of the ultra suede and folded it over. After it, you have to let the fusible web cool. Pull off the paper. Then you fold it in half. Put the press cloth back on it and fuse it, and then it becomes a double layer of fabric. So you can see possibly right here there's 2 layers. Okay, fused together. And I did that specifically so that it would give this a little more beef. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make these kitty eyes. And I'm just going to use let's see if we can get a mechanical pencil to show up here. So I can do one of 2 things. I could cut this out and use it as a pattern. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Don't look. Don't look. I'm just going to cut these eyes right out of this pattern because I can draw it again. Because that's going to make it easier to just not have to think here. Sometimes it's good not to have to think, you know? Alright, so we have 2 eyes. And they're not necessarily the same, and that is on purpose. When I drew them, I did not draw them the same. And then I'm just going to outline this. And I'm drawing around. This is just tracing paper, so this is not a heavy paper that I'm drawing around, so I'm having to kind of stabilize it with my finger. You can always reshape things. I'm not going super close to the edge because I'm pretty sure that I oversized the ultra suede when I cut it. And that there is no grain to ultra suede, so you can put these, you know, you can put them any direction you want. It's not like woven fabric. So I'm just going to trace around this. Alright. So kitty eyeballs, we'll set those aside. And then I'm going to cut these out. And I'm going to try to cut off the pencil outline. If I don't get it totally cut off, it's okay because I'm going to stitch around it with black thread, so it doesn't really matter. Or no thread at all, I'm not sure. We'll see how I decide to do it tonight because I'm not really sure. how I'm going to do it. All right, let's see. The goofier you make the shape, the more I like it. Okay, so there's one white of one eye. I have tried all different kinds of fusible web products. Literally all different kinds, and the truth is, all right, my scissors are just not wanting to cut this for some reason. The truth is that they're all good for some things, for different purposes. Now, I have an entire class on fusible web products on the website, and I've talked lots and lots of times about fusible webbings and how they work. And it is one of my favorite products to use. It also is maddening sometimes. And then you get used to using one brand that you really like, and then they discontinue it. Super frustrating when they do that. Or they run out of the stuff. Like for a while, Steam-A-Seam was that way. Steam-A-Seam 2 was one of my real favorites. And they ran out of one of the materials. I don't know if it was the glue or what it was that they ran out of with the Steam-A-Seam, and it was not available for ages and ages. So, yeah, they finally got it back on the market. All right, let's see if we can do a kitty eyeball here. It's always best to oversize them. You can always cut them down. You cannot make them bigger. It's a little excessive, Barb. And if they're wonky in shape, it's okay. They don't have to be perfect. Cut it down even a little bit more. I don't want to cut it down too far because then it makes it a little too hard to stitch it. Okay, that'll work. All right, then we need a second one. It's, yeah, Rhonda said Ultra Suede's too precious to wad up. Well, good point. Good point. So hopefully you are seeing that I just make it up as I go. I just reshape and reshape. That one's a little fat, so we'll... The bigger the pupil is, the more that it looks, the animal's going to look scared. So we don't want this kitty to look too scared. Okay, that's good enough. Good enough. All right. I'm going to throw all the scribbly scraps away. And then I'm going to use, just for the sake of time, I'm going to put a little bit of tacky glue on the pupil. just a little bit. And stick it onto the white part of the eye. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Just a little bit, not too much. Okay. So that will help to control those. Then I'm going to do the same thing, put just a tiny little dab of tacky glue right there, and a tiny little bit over here. And that should help us control those two pieces. All right, the other thing we have to do is put on a nose. So let me get some pink fabric here. So I have a couple of pieces of felt here. That's a really bright one. This is the one we used for the dog. I think we'll use this bright one for this kitty cat. And we're just gonna cut out. I'm gonna cut out just a little. This is wool felt that is wool and rayon. Mostly rayon, some wool. I bought it from Joggles.com. Hey, Dorothy. You forgot about me? Hi, Starla. Well, I'm glad you're here, Starla. Thanks for being here. All right, so we're going to take this little piece of felt, and I'm going to just put this little kitty nose on here. And as wonky as this may seem to be, I'm going to reach under this little just to give myself, hopefully, yeah, it didn't. That's all right. We're gonna make it up. Okay. So that looks about the right size. And I oversize it. So that I can kind of cut off that ink a little bit, and then I will flip it over and put it with the other side up. And right now the kitty looks like he is real mad, and we should be able to soften the character as we go along. But there is the kitty nose, and we're going to kind of angle it like that. I'm going to use a little bit of tacky glue, just a little tiny bit. Okay, so there we go. So, like I said, Kitty's looking real angry right now, but we should be able to change the expression as we go along. Okay? All right. So far, so good. Any questions? Put them in. Hi, Sharon. Put them in all caps. If you have questions, and I will try to see them. And as I said earlier, I had said I was going to give these away. We're going to do a drawing tonight. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to do that next Monday. And I will explain more as we get to the end of this show. Okay? So here we go. Those should be tacked up enough that maybe they'll stay put. I'm going to have a little swill of coffee here. grumpy cat. You guys remember the grumpy cat videos and stuff? Commercials and I don't know what all. I kind of have forgotten, but there was Grumpy Cat. And he was grumpy. Okay, let me set up my sewing machine here. So, I'm going to get in your way for a second. I am not entirely sure about the bobbin thread situation, so if we have to stop and wind a bobbin, we just will. And for this, I am using black sewing thread, so I'm not using anything special. This is Medley machine sewing thread. It is Metrazine. It's the polyester one. It's my favorite sewing thread. Alright. We're going to do free motion stitching to start with, because I need to stitch the little eyeballs, the pupil of the eye in place. And where did my kitty cat go? There he is. Okay. Alright, so I think you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'll try to keep my head out of the way. So what I'm going to do, this is a free motion foot. I'm going to hold the top thread. I'm going to bring up the bobbin thread. I have the feed dogs lowered, which means that they are disengaged. And that means that I'm going to control how the machine moves. The feed dogs are not working, which when you're in a regular sewing situation, they're moving the fabric. I'm moving the fabric with my hands, okay? So I have the needle set to be in the down position. I'm going to hold the threads with my hand till I get started, and I'm just going to go just some random stitches just to hold this on, to hold the pupil onto the eye, which is going to hold it onto the cat. And I'm going to come back this other direction a little bit because I kind of wadded up part of his little pupil a little bit, got kind of wonky there. When that happens, you just got to be the boss. And it's black thread, so it's going to be impossible for you to see it. But it's good enough, okay? And then without breaking the thread, I'm going to just come over to this one, and let's see how we can make this work. Okay, if you could see this up close and personal, you would think this was the worst stitching job ever, and you would be right, but that's the beauty of black thread. Scissors are as dull as can be, but I left my other scissors in the other room. It is one of the disadvantages of having the sewing room as far away from this area as it is right now. You see how wonky that stitching is? Yeah, looks like a second grader did it. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to set my machine off here just for I'm going to do that. Now let's do the nose while we're here. Let's go and let's stitch the little nose on. And I'm going to switch to the sewing foot and raise the feed dogs back up. I'm going to do, I'm sorry, my thoughts are a little discombobulated here tonight. Where I'm going to use a zigzag stitch, tiny zigzag, narrow and pretty short. And I don't remember what I used before, but we're going to do it as we go. And so I'm going to stitch on the nose and then beside the nose. So most of the stitching is on the nose. Okay, and this is slow machine stitching. And then I'm going to raise the foot. I'm going to reposition. I am getting inundated with spam calls for whatever reason right now. I do not know what list I landed on, what list my phone number landed on, but holy cow, they've been about to drive me to distraction. Okay, let me clip these threads real quick here. So this is slow stitching when you do this, okay? When you're working on tiny things or curves, tight curves and things like that, you need to go slowly. Okay, so we have a little nose stitched on. I'm going to pull the bobbin thread on the back of the work. And that will pull the needle thread to the back side. So I now have both of my stitching threads that I was using on the back. And then just real quickly, I'm going to knot those. Because something that is an area like a little nose like that is so tiny, I can't back stitch it. It will look terrible. So I'm just going to pull the threads to the back, knot them a few times, and then I'm going to leave a tail of thread. And that way, that will keep that little nose stitching from pulling out. Okay? Hi, Denise. Check out the sign. I did. Yeah, that may be what happened. I got landed on that. I did sign up for that, but it's been a while. I probably need to sign up again. Good thought. Okay, so we have a little nose. We have a tiny little nose. All right, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to move my machine at the moment now. For a moment. So I'm going to move the machine and get the black felt back. So this black felt is the same thing as what the nose was. It is wool felt. That is the trade name. It is wool felt. And it is part rayon, mostly rayon. It's like 70% rayon and 30% wool, or 80%. It's either 70-30 or 80-20. It just kind of depends on where you get it. Hi, Dar. Okay, so here is my wool felt. And so I'm going to put this kitty on here, like so. I'm going to oversize it. And then I'm just going to stick it on with a glue stick. So I'm going to stick it on with glue stick, just regular glue stick. Okay. And I'm going to stick it on just a few random spots of glue. Alright. It'll just help hold it on. And I rarely do things the same twice. So if you look at it and you go, well, that's not how you did the dog, you're probably right. If you watch the dog construction. Because truly, I am making it up as I go along here. Just straightening that up a little bit. Okay, our kitty is on the felt. And then I'm going to chunk out, leaving a margin around it. Erring on the side of too much as opposed to exactly the right amount. Because if you do exactly the right amount, guess what? It's not going to go well. It's just not. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is bring back the sewing machine, and I'm going to zigzag stitch all the way around, which is that's the way the little dog is connected to the black felt. And it was not done with the shape of the dog and the shape of the dog and stitching those together. The dog was cut out and put on the felt like this. Okay. He's not going to be here for a while. No, he's not. He's not. Okay, but thanks for asking. Alright, so I'm going to put my machine back again. So here we go. Okay. And I still have it set up exactly the way I had a moment ago. So the feed dogs are up. I have a tiny zigzag stitch working. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch all around the outside of the kitty. And you probably see this tiny, I don't know if you can see this tiny little tail. There are a lot of threads that are trying to come out. And you know what? If they come out, I will glue the pieces of fabric back down. Anytime you're working with something that's real tiny, like a tail like that, that's just the risk you take. Okay? Alright. So I'm using a regular presser foot. This happens to be an applique presser foot. I'm going to come in nice and tight so you can see what I'm doing. See all the threads poking up? In a perfect world, I would take time and I would glue those back down now before I start stitching, but I'm not going to because we're just going to start stitching. Alright, first things first, I'm going to go around the kitty. This is slow stitching, much like the eyeballs or the nose. And so I'm going to see, I got to get my needle positioned. Okay. So this is not, excuse me, this is not fast stitching, folks. This is not fast stitching. When I'm going around a curve on the, sorry, I don't know where my throat went. When you're going around an outside curve and you're going to reposition the needle, stop with the needle on the outside of the curve. Okay. If you're on the outside of the curve, it's going to maintain a nice edge. If you try and make those adjustments, on an outer curve, when the needle's on the inside, it's going to give you a real weird spacing. When you're in a straight area or a fairly straight area, you don't have to stop and make those fine adjustments. But when you're going around tight areas like this, you will have to make those adjustments if you care about how that the line of the stitching looks. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever. When it is an inner curve, you have to stop on the inside to make adjustments. But an outer curve, and this is a tight one, so I may have to change this every stitch till I get around this tight curve. But just trying to be cognizant of the fact that you stop with the needle on the right swing of a zigzag. Slow stitching. You've heard of the slow stitching movement, which is hand stitching. This is slow machine stitching. Sometimes it is very good to have slow stitching. Slow anything to just keep your hands and your head doing things that are kind of mindless. That's good. It's good. Okay, so I'm coming up here to a tight space, which is, let's see if I can show you. It's this space right here. Okay, so that's an inside movement. It's an inside corner. So I'm stopping with the needle on the inside to make that movement till I get around that corner the way I want. And now I'm on an outer curve. I'm going to stop with the needle on the outside to make adjustments. It will just help. If you ever get into doing this stuff and you practice that, you're going to see what a difference that makes in keeping the zigzag looking as consistent as possible. So you just have to get used to where you stop the needle swing to make the adjustment for your figure. And the same thing if you're doing satin stitching. With satin stitching, it's even more important because satin stitching, the threads are laying side by side, and so if you don't move the needle so the threads lay like this, one beside the other, if you don't stop that needle in the right position, what they'll do is the threads, instead of laying side by side, will start opening up and leaving gaps, and that's, yeah, not desirable. So this is going to take a minute. This is going to take a minute to do this. So I would recommend that you have a cup of coffee or tea or water or something. And hello, Joyce. Welcome, welcome. It's going to take a minute to get around this kitty cat. Okay, so we have another kind of corner to go around here, that kind of a sharp turn. So you just have to take your time. It is worth taking the time to do it. Okay, so I can pick up speed when I'm going in kind of a straight section, but once I get here to this outer curve again, I'm going to have to slow down and ease around that curve. And you may notice that I am not putting my hand back using the presser foot lifter. The reason I don't have to do that is because I have a hands-free system that Bernina offers, and a lot of the machines now, once the patent expired on the hands-free system or knee lift lever, which operates the presser foot, then many other companies adopted that technology. For a long time, it was like 25 or 30 years, Bernina had 100% ability to control that. But then the patent expired, and so then everybody had that technology. Okay, so another corner that we gotta navigate. All right, now we have to make a decision about these eyes. And I think I'm going to skip the eyes. So there's going to be a black thread there, but I'll clip that off in a minute. The eyes are held in place because I've stitched the pupils a lot. And oops. So I don't really need to stitch the eyes down, the white part. Okay, here we go to some little tiny ears. I did make this hard for myself. So I'm going to have to reposition a little bit here. Slow stitch. It's called slow for a reason. Okay, and back we go around an outer curve. And we come to another corner. This time it's another inside corner. So you stop with the needle inside, make adjustments. Slow stitching, one stitch at a time. Okay. Again, I'm going to stop and not stitch the eyeball or the whites of the eyes. I'm going to hop over that and pick up the rest of the kitty face. I don't know if it helps you for me to talk through my process, but it actually helps me to talk through it because it keeps me thinking about where I am and what I'm doing. Okay, now we have a very, very tight corner here. So I'm going to have to ease myself around this inner corner. Okay, now we got to pick up this little tail business. Okay. You sent your exhibits in today. Oh, that's great, Dorothy. I got to see what she was sending. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. Good job, Dorothy. That's great. Okay, so I will clip these threads out of here in a minute. So I'm going to have to ease around this little tail. So you guys are just going to have to hang on and watch. Because I'm holding on to the tail, and this is really picky work right here, so I'm really watching what I'm doing. Because I did make this hard for myself. Okay, this is where I'm going to have to use a pokey tool because I'm getting into an area that's too tight to hold on to it, so I'm using the Tim Holtz pokey tool. Alright, hopefully we can navigate this little tail. There's a lot of black zigzag stitching that's going to be on this tail because it's so skinny. But the curves are pretty gentle, and so I'm not having to do quite as much stop and adjust on the curves on the tail. Because if the more gentle the curve is, the more you can kind of fudge it. Alright, we're back where we started. Whew! Alright, I gotta get around this hip intersection here. I'm going to stitch over a little bit of the stitching here. I can get away with it because it's black. Otherwise, I would have to stop and tie those threads off, but I can get away with it here. Okay. So I'm going to let you get a good look. There's all kinds of little thread bits that we'll have to get just trimmed off. It's just detail stuff you got to trim off. I'm going to have to stop and go get my other little tiny sharp scissors, but I'm going to let you have a good look as you go through. Okay? Alright. Now, the next thing we got to do before I go get the tiny scissors is I need to make some detail stitching. So I need to detail the stitch around the head. So I need to define the head away from the body. Okay, so I need that. Also, on this kitty, on the way that I created it, I need to define the cat's belly. So let's do the front feet first. Let's see if we can do this. Let me see if I can do this where you can see it here. Okay, so let's see. I'm just going to look at what I have here. So there's the head. So this is about here. So I'm just going to come up and I'm going to stop about there. So that's where the legs are split. And then this little foot is going to come like this. And then it's going to come, this would be better if I was using a chalk pencil on this dark part down here. In fact, I have one, I can do that. Okay, so down here we can use this chalk part. He's going to have kind of a fat foot there. Okay, so we got a kitty foot. And then over here, I'm going to probably have to use again another kitty foot here. And the middle of those feet, the middle of the leg splits right about in there. Okay, so we're just going to give ourselves some guidelines. Like so. Okay? More or less. Now, I'm going to come around this kitty to define the belly. So I'm going to just do a combination of chalk and then pencil, since I have different colors of fabric happening here. Sometimes you can do the stitching, you know, for doing stuff like this, you can do it without having to mark it, but I'm doing, well, I'm doing it so you kind of see what my thought process is. Okay? I don't know how much of that you're going to be able to see, but it's enough that I think we can make it work. Okay? All right. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to switch to a tinier zigzag, closer together, but it's not going to be a satin stitch. See that? It's not a satin stitch. It will look like a satin stitch kind of because I went over it more than once. Alright, let's go. Let's give this kitty a head. Alright. It's a little wider than I want. Okay. And then I'm just going to come back and I'm going to stitch right over that again. Alright, so Kitty now has a face separated off of the body. Scissors. Seriously. I don't know what I cut with those, but whatever it was, those scissors need to go in the trash. They just did. Okay. Now we're going to come down here and we're going to do the kitty. We're going to do the division between the kitty legs. So I'm going to come straight down. And I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go back up there so that it's a darker line. Oop, and I ran, you know that thing where I told you about bobbin thread? You know how I told you that I might run out of bobbin thread? Well, guess what? I did, so it's going to take just a second and let me... Don't you love it? Yeah. Let me fill this bobbin real quick. I won't fill it entirely, but I'll get enough that we can get done. Fortunately, with the Bernina, you know, as long as you're used to your machine, it doesn't take you long to fill a bobbin. And it gives me a chance to tell you again remind you about threading your machine. Okay, that's enough. On my machine, there is an extra thread guide on the handle back here, which I always use, and that just helps to make sure that the thread, it's right back here. It just helps the thread stay where it doesn't get caught down in anything. Alright, when you thread your machine, presser foot must be up. Okay, presser foot up when you thread your machine. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make is they thread their machine with the presser foot down, and that doesn't allow the tension discs where the thread goes in here. These are the tension discs. When the presser foot is down, they're closed. When the presser foot is up, they're open, so the thread drops into the tension discs properly. Then when you put the foot down, it tensions the thread. So if you ever thread your machine with the presser foot down, and you get loopy stitches, that's probably what happened. The thread did not go into the tension discs the right way. So thread the machine with the presser foot up, you sew the presser foot down. Whether it is whether you're doing work with the feed dogs up or down does not matter. You have to stitch with the presser foot down. Okay? I had to get my there we go. And then I always bring the bobbin thread up, and then we're back ready to sew again. See, that didn't take too long. Ta-da! Okay, we're back in business. Okay. So, where we left off before the machine ran out of bobbin thread was right here. Usually I catch it before it stitches that far, but I did not today. And then I'm going to stitch right back up over the zigzag stitching that I did. Hey Marilyn, 53rd anniversary, good for you. We went to a 50th wedding anniversary celebration yesterday. It was for a Greek couple. It was an arranged marriage 50 years ago. And it has worked. Certainly has. It was a neat celebration. Neat people. Okay, so Kitty now has legs that are defined, but let's define even a little bit more. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to stitch back over that front leg again. I'm just cutting the threads off the back or from where I started. I'm going to have to just reposition my zigzag. Okay, and I'm endeavoring to stitch back over the same stitching as much as I can. Now, in the original artwork, the kitty had toes stitched in there. Well, it's not going to show up on this dark fabric. It will show up on this red. It may show up on the red, it may show up on the white, but that might be more detail than we want to do tonight. All right, let's come over here and do the other leg. we're going to come around this foot. I have no idea if this foot is going to be a decent shape, but we're going to, it's just a wonky kitty, so it's okay if it's not. Alright, we're going to come back and stitch our way back. But it was interesting yesterday, yesterday, that the food at the wedding, or the reception for the golden anniversary, was Greek salad and stuffed grape leaves and mini Greek dishes that were really quite tasty. It was a lot of fun. Okay. Alright, so we have kitty legs and kitty feet. I think we're going to ignore the kitty toes for now. If I decide to come back in and do them later, I will. Let's see, is there any other detail to put on here? I'll get rid of this thread going down through the kitty's eyes. That's obnoxious. If you do machine embroidery, if you get into doing machine embroidery, a lot of the designs, the machine designs, oh, I need to do the kitty hips. I need to do the tummy. Sometimes those designs, especially if they have people in them, sometimes they'll have it's called jump stitches, which is what I did when I jumped over part of the eye. And sometimes they will do that, especially with people if they're relatively small, and they're famous for jumping from one eye or eyebrow to the other. And if you don't cut that jump stitch, it just looks so bizarre, so bizarre. So cut the jump stitches. Okay, so one last thing we're going to do here is stitch the tummy. And again, I'm going to come back up, reposition, and I'm going to stitch back over that to give us a kitty tummy. Okay, so we have one part of the kitty tummy defined. And we need to get the other part of the kitty tummy. So there's the tummy, which also then makes the back leg look correct. I know I'm zoomed in really tight, but I did that on purpose so that you could see what I'm doing. So we're going to come over here to this side with this part of the kitty's tummy and leg. Okay, and then we're going to reposition and stitch back where we came from. Okay, and we're done. I think that's all the detail stitching I'm going to put on this little kitty, and then we're going to cut him out and put in his sparkle dots so that he's looking somewhere. Because right now the kitty just looks angry and it's not looking anywhere. Oh, we need to put the jowls in, or his little mouth. I forgot that part. So we need We need a little kitty mouth. I forgot that. How could we do... You guys almost let me do that. Yeah, you did. Okay, let's put in this little kitty mouth. Alright. I think for this one, we're going to dispense with the zigzag and just go to a straight stitch. Because I think this is so tight that I don't think we're going to be able to zigzag this. Not very well. Alright, let's see if we can stitch back over what we just did so it's thickening the line. Let me get rid of a thread up here. Okay, so right back. Alright, and then let's come down make the other kitty muzzle or lip or whatever you want to call it, mouth. And hopefully Kitty will look a little happier with a mouth stitched in with a little smile. Okay. So he has a little happier face. A little happier face. Right? Okay. Now I think we're done with the sewing machine. I think we can put it away. Okay. And then I need to go get my teeny tiny pair of scissors. If you will indulge me a moment. So can you guys hang on for a minute? Let me go get my scissors. We'll trim this out and then you can see what this kitty's really going to look like. Okay? So I'm going to put it right here. We'll put the little dog here by him. He looks a little happier now. I'll be right back. Okay, let's cut out the kitty. Are you all still here? I hope. I lost my chat. Just a second. Okay, all right. Hi, Barbara Clark. All right, here we go. So let us cut out this little kitty. And I cut around this. This is another, okay, we did slow stitching. Now we're going to do slow cutting. So I try to leave a consistent outline of the black. And the section in here between the tail and the right in here, I leave that till the very end, and then I decide if I'm going to cut that out or what I'm going to do. Okay? So I do all the bigger areas first. And I try to make it as consistent and smooth in the cuts as possible. The better your scissors are, the better this kind of thing goes. And felt can be kind of ornery to work with, so you just have to go slowly, and every once in a while take your fingers and run your fingers flat against, do not go this way, you'll cut yourself. Run your fingers flat against the blade. That puts a little bit of oil from your fingers on the blade, and it helps clean the blades and it helps them cut better. The reason I tell you don't run your fingers that other way on the blade, because I have stupidly done that before. Don't ask me why. I think it's just being careless and not paying attention. Okay, so there you see the idea of the outline, and I can go back and true that up a little bit. And this does need to be cut out, so we're gonna do it. Go slow. Take your time. Go from whichever direction works best. Okay, and that looks much better, much better. And now we're going to put this little kitty's sparkle dots in. Yeah, Dar, I'm gonna have to I'll have to figure out how to do that. Actually, if you go to the website, the post office box is on the website, and you can just get it's down at the bottom of the page on the website, and you can mail it to the post office box. That would be fine. Okay, so Kitty now is looking somewhere, and you got to keep your hand out of that, Barb, because that has to get good and dry. Okay? There are some detailed things on here that I will need to do, which is I have some little bits of the fabric that are flipping up edges and stuff, so I just put a little tiny bit of tacky glue in there and tack them back down, pat them back down. Some of the threads I'll do the same thing. But there is the kitty, and then once this eyeball paint is dry, then this is wax linen, And so I will probably stitch my thought is I will probably stitch some waxed linen whiskers out here, come from the back and let the whiskers kind of stick out there. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of what my thought is. I don't have any black, but I have this dark purple blue. So that's probably what I'm going to do to give the kitty some whiskers, because what's a cat without whiskers? You know, what's a cat without whiskers? And so I may do that. And I will probably add a little bit of glue under the whites of the eyes to help them integrate a little bit better into the kitty. So anyway, there's the kitty. Okay? All right. So that being said, we're going to give these away next Monday because things went sideways today. And so I'm going to tell you that. And yeah, not watching the chat. I will say this briefly, and then I'm going to just say goodbye. We had to let Muppet go this morning. She had a very difficult night last night. She was 17 or 17 and a half. I'm not sure, because we adopted her as a pup. And she had been going downhill, and we knew that was going to happen. So she had been failing slowly, and I also knew just from past experience that she would probably have, a catastrophic failure of some kind, and that happened last evening, and she had a really tough night, and so it became obvious that that was what we're going to have to do today. And so our vet very kindly worked us in, and so that happened. I really thought I could do this and not be emotional, but I got through the rest of it, so that's a victory. Anyway, I wanted you to know, because she's been a part of everything, off and on. You have been gracious as I've had to stop and take care of her. And Muppet's a dog, in case you guys don't know, anybody that's new here. You've been gracious when I've had to stop and take care of her. You many times have listened to her walk around on the floor, with the toenails and all of that. And thank you. And I'm not reading the chat, and I'm not going to read the chat because I know you're being kind, and that's hard. Kindness, as much as I appreciate it, is also difficult. And so thank you. With that, I'm going to sign off. And I will not be here this Friday. I will not be here the following Friday, but I will be here next Monday, a week from today. So I'm going to miss 2 Fridays, but I'll be here next Monday. Okay? All right. That being said, I'm just going to sign off, and I will see you back here in a week from tonight. So thanks for being here, everybody.